You've been seeking answers from every dermatologist, doctor, and all over the internet wondering what on earth this unbearable skin issue is. You know something's up, and you've been suffering and silenced for far too long. This podcast is going to bring awareness to the brutal reality that is topical steroid addiction and withdrawal syndrome. It will give you practical mental and physical tips to help you along your journey and provide you the strength you need to push through each day. You'll hear from real people battling this illness, as well as experts in the field, and I'm also going to share with you what's happening as I battle and conquer TSW. You are not alone, you're not crazy, and you will heal. If there's one thing I know, it's that anyone going through this hell is a warrior. My name is Jennifer Powers, and I welcome you to TSW Journey to Healing. Okay, I'm very excited to have this discussion and have this episode be all about womanhood and motherhood and parenting and dealing with TSW. And I am honored and privileged to invite one of my avid listeners and subscribers on the show to be a guest on the show. So Tamaki, I'm saying it right?
Right. Yes, you got it.
Awesome. Well, I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for being on TSW Journey to Healing.
Well, thank you so much for having me as a guest. I'm very excited and honored to share my journey as a mother and a womanhood.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we've chatted online back and forth about all the things, right? Beauty, feeling confident, feeling sexy, and then parenting and how do we do this? And we're snapping at our kids. So I thought, you know what, if we could just take our whole conversation that we've been exchanging and put it right here into a show, I know that it's going to be really powerful and it's going to help a lot of those moms out there that are feeling what we're feeling and going through what we're going through. And you just brought up so many great points in our Facebook Messenger chat that we're just gonna dump it all into this episode. And before we do that, I think it's always important to introduce yourself. So why don't you tell our listeners, you know, who you are, where you're from, and a little bit of your backstory.
Sure. So I am originally from Japan. I've been in US for a little over 20 years now. I can't believe it's been that long. But
Wow.
like most people who has been struggling with eczema, I never had an issue with my skin growing up in Japan. And the first, I think, its breakout was early 20. Of course, it's the environment changing from moving from Japan to here. I live in California. It's quite dry heat and compared to summer humid Tokyo heat. So my skin didn't, quite love it. And also I wasn't eating healthy food either as a 20 young, a lot of partying, drinking, eating whatever, cheap. It's what's most my, priority was. It's not, healthy. It was more of like affordability and easiness, right? So that was my first breakout in 20s, and I had a really bad skin rash. And I believe I can't really remember much, but I'm sure I used topical steroid that you can get it from oral, the regular, any drugstore. And that went away for a while until I became pregnant. And that's when I started noticing that outbreak. But it was seasonal. It was never like the year-round thing. It was seasonal. Like I have a 6 months of bath flares, and then it clears up, and that was just a continuation for a while. And I really didn't know anything about steroid withdrawal till I don't know how I stumbled upon. Really, it was back in January. After I'm going through my eczema and just my own chronic condition that I was battling for years, like my pain and arthritis and all that stuff, I went to school to study nutrition. So I became a certified nutritionist back last July. And so I was really working on healing gut because, I keep hearing over and over again, eczema is an inflammation that's manifested on the skin. So you need the, root cause, you need to heal the root cause, which is the most likely your digestive system and, the information, the food that you eat or, just all of that. So I was really working on to heal my gut for 6 months from the last flare that I was starting to have. And for reason, and I was talking to my classmates and what's a good supplement, so what should I remove, what should I eat, and all that stuff. And I thought I was doing everything, there is to do, but my rash just getting worse and worse and split the place that I never even had the problem with.
Hmm.
So at that point, I was starting to listening. I think Jennifer Hugo, I believe that
Yeah.
she's on Instagram. So on one of the podcasts that she had was about topical steroid withdrawal. And that point, I was like, "What the heck is that?" And I went and probably with like everybody else in the rabbit hole of just searching about this TSW and all the symptoms that I was going through, like just like, slam dunk. I'm like, oh. And from what I'm thinking about it now, that I probably was going withdrawal years prior to that. I wasn't sure what
Didn't
was
know
going.
what it was.
Yeah. And but as soon as I stopped using, so I'm on the month 6 now.
Okay.
Stop using steroid completely. It just spread like a wildfire. It stopped having on my torso, which again never had any problem with, entire legs, and before you know it, I was full blown red. Like
Yep.
burn, like red sleeves, whooping skin, big, flakes, and just everything that I'm sure most people dealt with. And I think it was one of the worst was the thermoregulation. I think it's what people call
Oh
it.
yeah. Yep.
That is super hot. Like you could feel my heat coming out of my body if you stand next to me, but in the core, I'm freezing. It
Yeah.
was
It's crazy, isn't it?
all this and most uncomfortable feeling I ever experienced, really. So that's my little story. I don't know, I covered everything, but that's how and I'm a mother of 3. I got 3 children of 8, 6, and 3 years old.
Awesome.
And yeah, so that's kind of
And
like,
so you have, so it's you and your husband, is that correct?
yes, I have a husband.
So you and your husband, and I think in our conversation, you said you have a really good support system, that he was able to like take some time from work to help you with this healing journey. Is that right?
Yeah, yes. And it was literally life-saving. I wouldn't know how I would manage without any support. Again, I'm here alone. My families are in, and my sister and brothers are all different states. So I don't have any families here. So I'm so grateful that I have my husband's support. But man, getting him off work was such a hassle with the whole, the medical system and government support and everything, because I wasn't going for, the doctor's recommendation, which was steroid.
Yep.
And, I went to the dermatologist finally, I was desperate, maybe 2 months in, when I was the most miserable worst that I was going through with burning skin and weeping skin and cuts and not able to sleep. This dermatologist I talked to was like, the only way you're gonna heal is steroid, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
he prescribed me 3 different steroids, 1 oral and 2 topicals for my scalps and my skin and my face and my body. And of course I straight before it's like, no, I'm not gonna do that. But if I don't take the doctor's, recommendation, then obviously you won't get the support that you want. It's just the system is all, screwy in
Yep.
that. But luckily we got some sympathy from the doctor, and we were able to get the approval for him to get the time off that I needed. I desperately needed, because again, mother of 3, and I was struggling. I was struggling to function. Let's just say that.
Yeah. Totally. I get it. And it's interesting. I mean, we're both kind of on the same journey. I'm within my month 6 at some point, give or take a couple weeks. And it's been such a ride, hasn't it? It's such a mental and physical, like so many challenges. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And you add motherhood on top of that. And it's like, you think, gosh, this might be so much easier if I was just me, myself, and I, or if it was just me and a partner, and I didn't have to
focus on being the best mom that I can be and taking care of the health, well-being, safety, and happiness of my children. It's just so much more added responsibility when this is so debilitating, and we're really supposed to be focusing primarily on our own healing and taking care of ourselves. It's just the mental anguish that can happen to a mother when she's going through this. It's a whole nother layer of added stress. And as you probably know too, it's like anytime I feel like I'm always stressed, but trying to always manage that, it's a whole nother task in and of itself to just try to like limit the stress and not be so hard on yourself. And I think that was one of the first things that you and I kind of connected on when you were asking me, like, how do you deal with, like being your best self with your children? Because you found that you can sometimes like snap at your kids, and it's not, it's just because we're so irritable. Is that, what's been your experience like with your emotions and like the way you've been parenting while going through this?
Well, I'm a human and I'm not a perfect mother. So there's a lot of moments of snappy, and but what I try to really teach this, I thought that this was perfect opportunity for me to teach my children that, one, to have a compassionate and sympathy for what people might go through. And I kind of include them in my journey. And then a lot of apologizing for one. And, it's just when I snap, and I make sure to comfort them and apologize them for why and what I did. I just admit that I was wrong. And even though it just, my son is the oldest, is 8, and he's probably the most, grown up to be understand what I'm going through, but especially the 3-year-old, she have no idea. Even I explain, that I don't know what comprehensive level she got. So that was really hard because she doesn't understand the civility of what I'm going through. And it was kind of funny that how we go through the shading and bright red and like all the game that I'm playing, the bandage you're playing, and my daughter says, "Oh, mommy, you look gross."
My son says that too.
Yeah, she was totally freaked out. And that was kind of turning point in a way, because I might kind of go off the topic, but I focused so much on my looks at first, right? Like you had a beautiful skin before, and all of a sudden you're shading, you can't even put like as simple as a mascara on to go out, or you're so self-conscious, like putting, masks on. Oh, it's like, convenience time to put mask backs on, and, sunglasses and hats to go outside. And I felt that I was projecting that, like the look determines who we are. And I probably kept telling myself how ugly I look. And when my daughter said that to me, and I was like, okay, this is wrong. Like I'm projecting and I'm teaching the whole wrong concept of beauty, that it's not about what we look, how we look, but it's, really have to focus on who we are. We are still the same person. And that was really my turning point as a mother. Like I didn't want my children to judge person by the look.
Love that. Yeah.
And it was hard, but then that outcome kind of really lifted me up a little bit, and even a little bit of scabby there, because I was housebound for 2 months, not because the look, I just couldn't drive. My neck was so raw, and I couldn't move my neck, and obviously you can't drive if you can't turn your neck around. So I couldn't pick up my kids from school or go like a simple grocery, or I couldn't even go for a walk because my joints are so swollen. So, not again, like I wasn't in a public at all, but when that kind of feel better for myself too, like when you tell myself that like this doesn't define who I am, just because I have this, and I don't know, I'm making myself clear, but
you are, absolutely.
And I just want, this was a good opportunity for me to really teach my kids. Again, it's like, I guess that's the point, was not, you can't judge by the look of, the skins or whatever they're going through. Because we know the inner beauty, we're still the mother, they love us no matter what shape they comes. And I love my two boys that they still, even in the midst of all the things I was going through, they still tell me how beautiful I was.
Oh, that's so sweet and heartwarming.
It is. And as I think you mentioned, like, this would be so much easier if we were alone, like a single person or just, and I mean, I hear a lot of story about, boyfriend or girlfriend leaving them. And I do have that little stuff, like a nervousness, as even my husband's been like with me on the thickness of it all. It's a lot for a family.
It is a lot.
It's the mental and physical, and for them not be able to do anything to take away our pain is probably the hardest. That I see. It's just so frustrating because we don't have so little answers to how to speed up this process, right? It's like, what can we do to get us healthy fast so that we can go back to normal life? But there's no clear answers to that. So that was like, it's the hard for me, like thinking that's like, I'm too much of a burden for my family.
Yes, I felt that too.
I can't do so much. But again, for that, like, I think my kids learned to help more. When I needed it. And also, I asked them to actually give a soft touch, because at one point I couldn't even hug my kids. And what's that probably the hardest? Like, I couldn't snuggle them. I couldn't hug them. I couldn't even let them touch me. But I also kind of asked them to like gently touch my skin and give a good energy to help me heal. So yeah, I don't know. It's very helpful to a lot of mom out there, and it's really, really tasking mentally, physically. And if best part of suggestion is if you could ask for help.
It seems like such a simple thing, but so many of us are, for whatever reason, we have such a hard time leaning on others or asking for that helping hand, and it just can make the world of difference.
Right, because like, you're a superman, like you want to do everything right and perfect, and like I had to learn that imperfection, it's okay, right? Like my husband trying to help, and it's something that's like he does differently than I do, then it gets kind of like irritated. But in essence, like for like the dishes, for example, like I absolutely hate doing dishes right now because my hands, like any water like besides my bath, it's really irritating and it opens up the skin. So but he does dishes different than I do, and I just like I need to let it go, it's okay, and that's the help that I need. And also that's like learning for me, that's like I need to be okay of any form that it's come. It's the help that I need to appreciate and just be okay with it for my own sake.
You sound so much like me. I am such a perfectionist, and I'm like, it's so hard. You're right. It's so hard asking for help when you're like, well, but this goes here and this is done this certain way and it has to be done this way or it's not correct. And it's just like, we have to relinquish control. And I think that's another lesson that this is teaching me. We have to not only lean on others and ask for the assistance and the help when we need it, but also know that we are so not in control in so many more things in our life than we realize. I think a lot of the times we think we are in the driver's seat and we can call all the shots and we know what's coming and we can plan and prepare. And then you get hit with something like this and your whole world is turned upside down and you realize I actually don't have the control. Like God is in the driver's seat here of this thing, and I can only assist my body and help and slow down and lean on the people that I need to lean on. But I don't I can't call the shots on this. You know,
Right.
I
Yeah.
have to let it go. I think you brought up like, that was so many really good points. And it's so funny because not about like, because I'm divorced, so single mom over here, but so I don't have my husband doing the dishes, but my son is trying to like help out and do some chores to make some money for his video games that he wants to buy. And he started cleaning the other day. Like he told me his air quoting here, like air quotes cleaning, because it wasn't actually cleaning. He was doing everything wrong and tidying up in his way, which was literally just shoving things in corners of the room and not actually putting anything where it was supposed to go. So I had to like laugh a little bit and just say, you know what, he was doing what he thought was his best. And although normally I would might maybe be a little bit like, no, that was wrong, I'm just like, you know what, I have to just let it go and be grateful. And he's trying the best he can, and he's trying to help me out. You know, so we have to let go sometimes and just kind of laugh it off and say, okay, well, when I'm healed, I can get back to doing it my neurotic self way and do whatever I want to do and how I want to do it. But you brought up such a good point. And the whole thing going back to, you know, your daughter about saying like, oh, mommy, like, yee, like, you know, you look gross, or you're like, why do you look like that kind of thing? It stings and it can hurt, but it also, you know, children say, obviously, they're super honest. They say what's on your mind. So sometimes when my son kind of hinted at that or even said things like that, it made me think, uh-oh, well, if he thinks that, and kids are super honest, then what's everybody else thinking? So when you go out and about and you try to leave your house and try to function as a normal person, and we're women, so we tend to be very critical of ourselves, and we try to, and we're not used to that person in the reflection or like looking back in the mirror. We don't recognize who that is. So I know that you and I were kind of similar. We were saying, oh my gosh, why don't we look 20 years older than we actually do? This is so horrible. This is so difficult. And we both, I think, put on makeup for the first time right around the last few weeks, for the first time in months. What was that like for you? Like, how were you going from all those months of no makeup and just kind of, you know, looking in the mirror and being like, oh my gosh, like, when will I look back to myself? And then you were able to put on the makeup. What was that like?
Well, it's a funny story. Funny thing is, I rep for a non-toxic cosmetic. So for months, you know, I wasn't even able to wear even the non-toxic cosmetic because, well, you know, your skin is breaking for a while. So it's like if you try to put foundation on that, it would just be disaster. So you know, I don't really wear makeup that often. I just like to when going out a little bit, or date night, or just, you know, just occasional going out on the weekends. But when for the event I went, I was able to wear makeup for the first time, and it was super liberating because it was my choice to put it on, right? It's not like want to force me to do it. It's just it was, and I don't know the feeling. It was just really happy. You know, just like, I mean, again, like, you know, I don't like to define ourselves with the, you know, beauty with the cosmetics, but it's like it's just able to kind of like doll up and like look fancy up for occasion. It's good for womanhood sometimes.
Well, it's right. And to know that you can put that on to just like amplify your natural beauty, and you know that you don't need it, or you feel like you have to wear it. But it's funny. It's like the things that we take for granted. You know, we wouldn't have thought twice if we wanted to put makeup on before this. Fine, no big deal. Go ahead and put it on. Right. Now, when you know you can't do something, it makes you miss it and want it that much more. You know, it's right. Yeah, it's the same thing with kids, like the reverse psychology a little bit. You know.
Yeah, so it's like having to be able to like do that every day versus like, you know, was the first time I was able to do without getting adverse reaction to that. It was kind of like, you know, kind of also kind of give me like how far I've come on this journey. You know, it's the little like measurement that's like, oh, like my skin is not reacting to it. And I came a long way.
Right? Yeah. Yes. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with my next, I was going to ask you, how do you think your confidence, and you kind of touched on this with your children and now with the makeup, but what would you say like your confidence is like now today versus going through it in maybe the first month or two?
So yeah, the first month or two when I starting this TSW, there's two things was happening to me. Was one, I mentioned that I'm a certified nutritional therapist,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been preaching and educating people to, really deep it, finding the root cause of all this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that, I got off of many medication that I was on, like painkillers and other form of any like a pharmaceutical medication that I was on prior to I started studying nutrition. Because thank you to the, whole food diet and other stuff that I've done. But steroid was the one thing I couldn't stop using, because while mother 3 is like, you can't slow you down, right? Like the skin,
Mm-hmm.
is slow you down. Like it's literally mentally, physically slow you down. And I was still taking a shortcut. And for me to like, I guess, come out and admit the fact that I was still using the steroid was the hardest part for me, believe it or not. Like I kind of like not ashamed, but it's like blame myself with, and then maybe a little bit of ashamed of where I was stands as a professional stand.
Mm-hmm.
And so first, kind of like coming out of it and admitting the fact that I not perfect. Yes, I did use steroid, and
Mm-hmm.
this is what I'm going through. That was one thing that I have to kind of overcome to be able to. And then after like seeing you and hearing you stories and like kind of like immerse myself to the, the it's in, I think is how to call it, the Facebook group, finding more
Yep.
of the TSW warriors, it really kind of give me strength. And then I realized that I have to use my voice to spread the awareness to,
Yeah.
even like right now, what I'm doing to help the mother out there, or maybe preventing other person to start using and going to this awful, miserable journey that we are in. So there's two things I think happen. It's the admitting and accepting what I did, and then turning around that this is, in a way, is a blessing that happened to me. One, now it forced me to completely get off the steroid.
Mm-hmm.
Two, I met people like you, that this relationship would never form if I didn't go through this, right? And other relationship that I had with other TSW warriors, which was, I think, is such a blessing to me, that any form of meeting a new person and connection these days is, I don't want to take that easily. It's like, it's amazing connection that I'm very grateful for.
I agree.
And power that I have now to share and support one another, that to, overcome. And when I went through all that, all of a sudden I feel okay of sharing my skin. Like, you know what? This is temporary and this is happening and I'm on it. But I know I'm going to come, overcome this, and I'm going to conquer this, and I'm going to come out clean, and maybe even better, who knows? So when I kind of went through the emotions, I no longer feel scared to be seen.
So good.
But I feel like I earned like a gain strengths rather than a weakness,
I love that. I totally agree with that. And it's so funny, all of us could probably agree that this is by far the worst thing we've ever had to go through. And we talk about how horrible it is. And yet in every single one of these interviews and every single guest I've had on the show, it's a common thread. And I feel the same way, where we're all saying the same thing, saying this is a blessing. This is a blessing. And isn't that interesting that one of our darkest times of our life, one of the hardest things we'll ever have to go through, we're saying, thank God for that. I'm happy for that. I'm grateful that I have this awful problem. And it's like, sounds so crazy because it is so terrible, but we always, you have to look for the blessings in the dark times and in the things that are handed to you that you wouldn't have necessarily ever chosen for yourself. But there's always a silver lining. There's always a message. There's always a reason why this is happening. And I totally agree with you. We get to meet people, we get to make an impact, we get to connect, and we get to experience empathy for other people, which is just so important as a human being. So,
Right.
so I want to ask you also, it's so funny. Any mama that's listening to this episode right now, did you know that epidurals have steroids in them? Because I did not know this. And to me, I'm going to say your name wrong again. Tamaki, I was saying it, I was in my head, it wasn't coming out of my mouth. Tamaki messaged me and told me this, and I did not know this, and I couldn't believe that. Were you as shocked? I mean, I think you were, right? Like, we were both pretty shocked about that.
Yeah, I'm shocked. And my two birth, I had an epidural. So yeah, it definitely, I haven't called a doctor or hospital to ask about what kind of epidural I had, but it was completely shocked when I read that on one of the thread. I think in our Facebook group that the mama says that I'm about to go into birth, and there's this. I heard that there's steroid in the epidural, and I'm like, and I think I also recently heard that on the Jennifer Hugo's podcast, and I was like blown away how ubiquitous the steroid is in everything around us.
Right?
Like there's an inhalers. I mean, people first, when they say steroid, they think it's automatically like the athletics, right? That people use steroid to up themselves up and all that stuff, and they just this form of the hormones are using in so many different things. And yeah, it totally freaked me out. And of course, couldn't help but wonder that would there be that trigger from my withdrawal? Who knows? Because I know how long it stayed, but I know, when you inject that on the spinal cord, it lasts for a while because you are sore for a while, right?
Definitely.
It's pretty damaging thing that we do to ourselves. Again, we don't know. There's so little thing that known with this TSW, and again, as you know, that most doctor will ignore or completely shut you down when you say you're going through TSW. So, again, that's the lack of research and knowledge is have around. Who knows? But yeah, I was totally, completely blown away, and I was like, "What? There's no way."
I know. I was same thing. And I don't know why I'm surprised at this point in life. I don't know why anything surprises me. We should probably assume that like most medicines that are magical, like an epidural. I mean, I had one, my son ended up being C-section, but I had one and I was thinking, my gosh, anything to take the pain of childbirth, and why not? Go ahead, sign me up. And I wouldn't at that time. I mean, I was my son's 11 now, so this was a long time ago, but I just, you don't even think. I think that's another one of the positive or the blessings that come with this is we are now natural investigators and more super cautious, super aware, major researchers with every single thing that we're going to put in and on our body, because it's just so important. And it's really a shame that we can't just have that blind faith, blind trust, just whatever the doctors say, just go ahead and do it. I remember telling my grandmother about this, and she's like, gosh, it's such a shame, because back in my day, 50, 60, 70 years ago, like we just did whatever our doctor said. And it just, whether the world is now more corrupt or there's more, who knows what, right? It's just, it's a shame, but also instead of it looking at like, because I'm always trying to, twist things and put positive spin here and give some hope. It shouldn't make us feel overwhelmed or angry that we have to do it. It should empower us to do the right thing for ourselves and our children, our families, like spend the extra time, spend the time researching, look into things. And then you can't then say, oh, I wish I did. I wish I looked into it. Like, you deserve it. Your family deserves it. Your health is so important. I'm saying this, but pay for your health now or your sickness later. So pay for it in either time or money, right? Because that's how we pay for things, or both, or you're going to be paying in the long run and suffering, unfortunately, in the way that we're doing. And I mean, this is an avoidable and preventable illness that we both have that we're going through. And it's, if we can help somebody else avoid this, by all means, we got to do that. That's like our duty and obligation.
it definitely, it kind of gave me also, as a practitioner, this is not where I focus on working with the clients, but now with the TSW under my belt, I definitely want to help people who are suffering with the eczema and skin issues.
Yeah.
Because you said it right. Like, I spend so much money on supplements, the cream
Hmm.
that might work, and other regime. Like, I even bought myself a sauna blanket. I mean, it's just, I tell and preach again once in every day, like now or later. And
Right.
I'm, I'm not that old, but it's like I'm doing that. I'm spending so
Yeah.
much money that could be avoided from,
Yeah.
beginning. So yeah, it's definitely, we have a powerful message that we can share, and which you're doing. And I'm so appreciative that you started this podcast. Like, I listen to this every time I go for a walk.
Oh, I loved hearing that. That's so awesome. I'm glad, and I don't know how you feel about it, but like, maybe it's because we're in the middle of it. We're going through it. It's just, I don't get sick of hearing different people speak about their experience or learning new things, because this is my entire world right now. And this is my whole new mission. I like just changed everything in my life to like, do what I'm doing now. And I guess sometimes people are like, well, yeah, but you're going through it. Do you really want to like immerse yourself 100% and listen to more and read more? And I'm like, yeah, I do. I actually really
Mhm.
do. Because I think it's just so important. And it's so fascinating learning about other people, their stories, their experience with this. So I really am so grateful that you enjoy listening when you're taking your walks. And I'm glad that you're able to walk, because believe it or not, I have an interview. Oh, I had an interview with someone. His episode's coming out, I believe, next week. And
Mhm.
it's just, again, the things you take for granted. His name is Luke, and
Yeah.
he was unfortunately, like, for a few days, not able to walk at all, was thinking, and he's only 32 years old and thinking of getting a wheelchair. And it's like, just the
Oh,
ability to walk, to get out in the sunshine, to bend your arms without feeling like they're
yeah.
so stiff and sore. I mean, just like
Mhm.
all these little things. I'll
Yeah.
never again, I just have a whole new outlook of life. And it makes you appreciate these tiny little things that you would have overlooked.
Absolutely. I just made a story that a couple days ago that I'll never take granted, as simple as taking a walk, because
Yeah.
I had months I couldn't walk, and I was just
Yeah.
getting in the gym right before I started this TSW journey.
Oh.
And I had my goal set up to pull myself up by my birthday, which is in February.
Mhm.
So I started working out from the right before New Year 2022.
Mhm.
And I was working out every day with my husband, and I accomplished it. And boom, I no longer could walk out. I couldn't work out in the gym. I couldn't even, I
Yeah.
work out with my girlfriend every day, and I couldn't do that no longer. My joint hurts too much, right? I couldn't even squat without feeling
Yeah.
the, agony pain on my kneecaps, and my ankles
Yeah.
are swelling up, and I couldn't walk. I remember, first time, I think it was in May, the first time I went for a walk for the first time in the several months, I cried the whole 30 minutes. So I was
No.
looking at the skies and hearing the bird chirps, and it just like, it's so liberating to such a
It is.
simple act that we take a granted every day, as just, or even just as a mother, hug from my kids without feeling the ooze sticking your shoulders, or the phrase goes around, and then the pain that you get from like just this touch.
So
That
true.
the simple act of like a hug. I just remember the first time I was able to do that without, like, it was, don't, please don't touch. Like, I didn't want to say that, but like
Right.
my head is like, oh no,
And
like
it's,
I
and
could.
it's hard for them to really understand, well, why can't I hug mommy? Like,
Right.
why? And even though you say you try your best to explain it, they still, in their tiny like minds, they're like, but what? But I want to. Why can't I? They can't really understand it fully. So it's
Yeah.
heartbreaking, and it's traumatic for us as moms, because we just want to take care of our children and do the best job that we can. And I'm sure in some way it's just so confusing for them. So I can
Mhm.
understand. I mean, the amazing feeling, that overwhelming sense of like gratitude and like the tears falling with the being able to walk and hug and just do things that you would always be able to do in the past. But I have to give you credit. So bravo for hitting your goal and pulling yourself up and doing that at the gym. I mean, I know you had to take a little break there, but like you said earlier, this is not permanent. This is not a permanent state of being. And I think we all need to remind ourselves, because this is not a linear healing. This is highs and lows, and it's a roller coaster ride. And you and I know that, right? So it's like, it also gives you that gratitude. Like if you have a good minute, hour, week, day, couple days, whatever it is, like just to hold on to that and give so much praise and thank you. And know that if it doesn't last, it's still okay. You'll have a bad day, but you'll have a good day again too. And then before we know it, time is so fast. Having children, look, we're both moms. I don't know about you, but I never, I didn't realize how fast time went until I had a child, until I became a mother. Now it's like, you look at your child and your children and you're like, oh my God, I just blinked and they are how old now? And like, what's going on?
Oh my God. I feel that way every day. I'm like, how this happen? I miss my babies.
I know.
But one thing I want to say to like the moms out there is definitely, the kindness to yourself, give a gentle tap that you're doing and you're strong, you're powerful. It's okay to give yourself a slack and like just piled up the laundry or dishes. It's not gonna, it doesn't gonna hurt. And what I helped me do was like a lot of batch cooking when I was feeling better.
That's very good. Yeah.
Again, it's like I'm pretty picky of what my family, as being a nutritional therapist, like I'm really picky, but I also give myself, slack and sometimes just frozen pizza if it's need to be, just make your life easier. And other point I want to point out, I think it's to me was important is when, as much as I felt that if I was single and alone, this would have been much easier without, worrying about well-being of my kids, my children. I gotta say, I don't know, I would have made it this way if I wasn't with them. They give me the fuel and power that I need to push through it. So it's
I agree with that.
Like they might have a little bit of trauma going to see your mom, mom going through it. I mean, no kids would not have any feeling towards that, of watching, the loved one go through it. But I think it's give them much blessing, and they're stronger than you think. So
yes, kids are resilient.
They are really resilient, and I think it's not just to listen to ourselves, but it's a great listen to our children, and I believe that.
I think so too. I think that it's important for them. Like all we want to do is protect and sometimes shelter, sometimes to a fault, our children, because we don't want them to feel pain or see sadness or feel sadness. But suffering is that is the one thing that it's a common thread for every single human being. We all suffer. We all will suffer. Suffering is inevitable in life. So if you can, you show your children that, but you still stay as positive, have a good faith, have a good outlook on life, try your best to stay, glass half full mentality, and then tell them it's also okay to feel like you're at rock bottom. It's okay to break down and cry. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay that you're in pain, and it's okay to say that. And when you have a family, you're teaching them, hey, we all lift each other up. When one of us is down, we pick each other up. And it's usually the way where the parents are doing that for the children. But when things like this happen, which is out of our control, sometimes it's those children that get to see, hey, my mom or my dad, or like they take care of me. Well, now look, mommy's suffering, mommy's in pain. What can I do to help? And it kind of teaches them a good lesson about being a member of a family, being a team player, and so I don't think, as sad as it is, and I agree with you, I know we said earlier on, gosh, it would be easier in some ways, but it also would be a hell of a lot more lonely, and it'd be very, very difficult doing this on your own. And my heart goes out to anyone who's listening or anyone that's dealing with this that does not have a support system. My big suggestion is get inside the support group, the It's Am Facebook group, reach out to me, reach out to some, reach out to anybody.
I actually reach out to people and I'm hoping that they will message me back, because even with the support system, it's and again, it's really hard for my husband to understand like the degree of suffering or what
Yes.
we're going through internally. Even like I feel like I share quite a bit, but I don't share my emotions 100% because,
Right.
I could go to a dark place that could be very depressing for, family
Yeah.
member. But I'm
Yeah, well, and that actually gives us some stress too, don't you think? I mean, like sometimes same exact thing. We try to protect and shield our families from all of the feelings and all of the symptoms and all of the pain that we're going through because we love them and we don't want them to necessarily worry about us. But that actually adds another whole layer of stress for us, which is why I think it's exactly why I started the show. I want people to feel like they are not alone and they can connect with
Mhm.
other people that know exactly what they're
Yeah,
going through.
yeah. I
If
think
somebody had cancer, like God forbid, knock on wood, I haven't had that. So like you find other people that have survived and dealt with cancer. If you're an alcoholic, that's why you go to AA meetings, right? Like you need
Mhm.
to find people that really truly they've been where you are and they can understand you and they can give you that like pat on the back and lift you up when you really need it.
Absolutely, and that's the reason I listen to your show every time.
Aw.
Right? And you feel you're part in the community and you're not alone, and that's I think it's the most important thing going through hardest time in your life, that
Yeah.
knowing that's like you're not alone on this battle, like you're somebody there, and if you need to be, somebody's there to listen to you and be there
Yes.
for you, even in a far away, and that's still nice to know that there is there, if you need it. And
Completely.
yeah, listening, like I'm always here to listen and chat, and which I
Yeah.
did do. Right, like I contacted you right away. I was like, hey, so
I Tamaki, I am so glad that we were able to do this. I'm so glad that we connected and we met each other through our mutual misery going through this. We met each other, so I'm so grateful for that. And I want to wish you like the best. I'm sure we're going to obviously stay in touch and keep each other posted on our progress. But I just want to wish you a really beautiful healing journey. And I really hope anybody that is a mother that is listening to this episode, please share this episode with any other parent, mom, even if you're a dad. There's so much relatable content here, and I think we really need to give ourselves a lot of grace and compassion and love ourselves a little bit harder, especially those of us that are raising children, because it is tough. It is really, really tough on its own, and then you add that piece to it. And I think you brought up some incredible, valuable pieces of advice, really amazing things. I can't wait to put this all in the show notes for people to read and check out. And you are just so awesome. So I just want to thank you very much
oh,
for taking the time. 3 kids, that's not easy. I only have 1, you have 3. So to get away and spend some time to do this with me, it means a whole lot. And I know everyone listening feels the same way.
thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate it, and I'm very honored to be on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening. Please remember to subscribe and leave feedback. With your help, we can spread awareness together. So please share the show with anyone you know who may be struggling with a medical condition and using steroids to treat it. And be sure to check out the blog for helpful resources to aid you along your TSW journey at tswjourneytohealing.com.